Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah. Very good to be here, Baruch Hashem. We have some new faces. Always good. Not that I get tired of the old faces, but listen, guys, I need something new once in a while. So the series, Baruch Hashem, is doing a lot of good. A lot of people have, new people have been watching the Sunday series, the amazing questions about God. Sometimes they like your questions better than my answers. Sometimes they like the answers better than your questions. But Baruch Hashem, it's helping people. I have some stuff that I do want to mention that I think is extremely relevant to everyone, whether you're religious or not religious. Surprisingly, this is a problem, in the religious world as much as it is in the non-religious world. But since we have some new faces, you guys can start with some questions before anything else. If you have some questions about halacha, about the parasha, about anything else, B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully I have the answers. Anyone questions? Same price. Go ahead.
Can you use like leftover Hanukkah candles for one lighting Havdalah? Or does it have to be Havdalah candles or special candles?
Use any candle you want.
Hold them together?
Yeah, the Hanukkah candles lose their significance once they're not used in Hanukkah. They're only significant if you actually use them for Hanukkah. Otherwise, they're just a simple candle. So whether, in general, you should know that for women, there is three major mitzvot that the Gemara Masechet Shabbat talks about. It says that it's so important for them to do it and be careful with them that their life is on the line if they don't do it. What are those three? First one is afrashat challah. It's making challah and making sure that you take about a handful of the challah, of the dough, out. And in today's age, there's no one to give it to, so you burn it or throw it out. You wrap it in tin foil and then throw it away, or you could burn it. That's afrashat challah. The second thing is adlakat nerot, which is the candles for Shabbat. And the third is nida. So why are these three out of all? I mean, there's a lot of mitzvot in the Torah. There's 613 mitzvot. A good portion of them are for the Bet HaMikdash that we don't have, unfortunately. A good portion of them are for men. And a certain portion of them are for women. So why did Hashem pick these three to specifically mention that if a woman doesn't do it right, if chas v'shalom, her life is ever in danger, this could be a case against her. And the Gemara specifically says, when does the case go against her? Specifically when she's about to give birth. Why? Because any time a woman is about to give birth, her life is on the line. Even if she's healthy, even if she's young, even if she's always eating vegetables and proteins and perfect and everything is wonderful, her life is on the line. And in Mekatreg, the Yetzer Hara comes to Hashem and it says, look, this woman did not light her candles properly. This woman did not make her challah properly. This woman did not keep Taharat Mishpacha properly. And if she doesn't have enough credits to battle it, Hashem says in the Gemara, that's the time, that's in essence the opportune time that unfortunately she could lose her life. And people think that this is something of the old days, something that happened 3,000 years ago. But I can tell you that I know somebody that unfortunately died just a couple of months ago at childbirth. Perfectly healthy young woman, everything was wonderful, everything was great. Hashem and Hashem, she died at birth, giving birth. So this still happens today. This happens every day. Baruch Hashem, not often to the Jewish people, but nonetheless it does happen. So don't think this is something that, oh no, because of all the technology we have, it doesn't happen anymore. It's nonsense. Everything that's written in the Torah, it's not written in the Torah just because, Hashem wanted to give you a bunch of stories. The Zohar Kadosh says that anyone that thinks that the Torah is a history book loses their right to live. It's to that extent. Why? Because it's the last thing you should consider the Torah as a history book. It's a book of laws, of things that are going to be relevant to forever, permanently. Now in the Gemara Masechet Megillah, Gemara is the Oral Torah. We have a written Torah and we have an Oral Torah. The Gemara is the foundation of our Oral Torah, and there's different tractates. It's called tractate in English, and in Hebrew it's called Masechet. And there's different explanations of what the written Torah actually says. So without the oral Torah, the written Torah would be meaningless. We wouldn't know how to read it. For one example is, the way we understand the English language, for example, every word has a foundational letter called a vowel. A, E, I, or U. And sometimes Y, or in the English language, where you know that in every single word in the English language, they must have one of those letters. Must have. There is no such word that doesn't have at least one vowel. Sometimes there's more than one vowel, but there's a general principle that usually isn't more than two vowels in a row. Consecutive vowels in an English language. Not here to teach you English, just you should know this. Anyway, in the Hebrew language, our vowel system is not letters. In the Hebrew language, our vowel system is dots. It's punctuation. So sometimes you'll see in Hebrew, you see these little dots inside the letter, on top of the letter, on the side of the letter. That's the vowel system. That dot changes the significance of the words, usually in a huge way. What is it like? If, let's say, for example, you decide to write the word Moses in English. If you wrote the word Moses, you have to use a few vowels. You have to use O, and you have to use E. So you have M-O-S-E-S. Now, if you took away the vowels, what do you have? M-S-S. It's a completely different word. Same exact thing in Hebrew. If you take away the vowels, or you change the vowels, or there's vowels that are used inappropriately, instead of sha, it's sa, it's a completely different word. Okay, so that's part of a critical part of the oral Torah. So anyone that goes, for example, Christians love to go against the oral Torah. Reform and Christian and conservative Jews love to go against the oral Torah. They always say, no, rabbis wrote it, this wrote it, that wrote it. But the reality is that without the oral Torah, we have no Torah. We wouldn't know how to read our Torah at all. We wouldn't have a written Torah. Now, why do people go against the oral Torah? The reason is because the oral Torah is the one that obligates you. That's the one that tells you exactly what God said when he said, keep Shabbat. When in the written Torah, he says 12 times, you have to observe Shabbat. But he doesn't say how. He also says you have to lay tefillin. But he doesn't tell us how. He doesn't even tell us how they look like. He also tells us that you have to do Brit Milah. But we don't know what Brit Milah is. He says cut the orla. What's an orla? Maybe it's an earlobe. Maybe it's a nose. Maybe it's nails. If I was a guy and I was picking it, I'd pick nails. It doesn't hurt. Last thing I would pick would be where where it actually really is. Last pick I would pick. I mean, you're out of your mind. But that's the divine mentality that's very far away from us without the Torah. So the oral Torah is the one that explains to us what an orla is, how the tefillin look like. They must be square, they must be black, they must be from a kosher animal, and so on and so forth. All of the rules of the Torah are in the oral Torah. And that's the one that obligates you, because it's also the one that tells you the consequences of what happens if you don't follow what Hashem says. So now this oral Torah also tells us that Am Yisrael has had over 1.2 million prophets throughout all of history. 1.2 million prophets. This is in the Gemara, Tractate Megillah. So the Chachamim, the sages ask, okay, we only have 55 mentioned in the Tanakh. In the written Torah, there's only 55 of them mentioned, so there's a few missing. What happened to them? So the Hashem responds, I only left you the information that's relevant to you. Meaning, the 55 prophets that are mentioned in the Torah, whatever they said is relevant to eternity, to forever. All the other prophets out of the 1.2 million, their information was relevant, but only to their generation. Therefore, they were not included in the written Torah. They existed, they were holy, they were wonderful, everything's great. They're just not eternal. Their information is just simply not eternal. Which means to us that every single thing that's mentioned in the Torah, it's relevant to you. It's relevant to me. Even though this is 3,300 years after the fact. So no one can say, oh, no, Moses didn't drive on Shabbat because he didn't have a car. Or they didn't eat, they didn't eat non-kosher because they didn't have this restaurant, because they didn't know how good the food really is. They don't have such a thing. Everything that Hashem wrote is relevant to you. And we see it from the parashot when you actually know how to use the Torah, you know what the commentators are actually saying, you know the behind the scenes, you start realizing that it's not only relevant, it's the best instruction set that you could ever get. So, when it comes down to the Torah also tells us that we have to have certain types of laws. We have laws of Shabbat. Shabbat is not only a law that you have to comply. In essence, you vouch for the fact that you agree and testify, as you're a witness, that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. Meaning that any time a Jew violates Shabbat, the Gemara says that it's equivalent of them running in the middle of the street and saying, God, I don't agree. You didn't create the world in 6 days. You didn't create it. I don't think you created it. Meaning you're going against Hashem. The same token, it also said we have laws like Nida, Tarat Mishpacha, and Chala. Now when it comes to the candles of Shabbat, it's not necessarily the candles per se that Hashem gets upset about. It's not the candles. The candles, if you forgot, for example, to light candles, or you couldn't afford candles. Shabbat's still Shabbat. Shabbat doesn't start because of the candles. Shabbat is Shabbat with or without the candles. Obviously, you're obligated to light the candles. But if you forgot, or you couldn't, for whatever reason or another, Shabbat is still Shabbat. So why does it say that if a woman doesn't light the candles properly, then her life is at risk? Why? Because if you're late to light the candles, let's say, for example, Shabbat starts at 5 o'clock. 5. And it ends the next day at 6 o'clock. 26 hours, 25 hours. It's a lot of time. 25 hours. Especially when you first start to keep Shabbat. Seems like it's forever. So, let's say you messed up a little bit. You started, instead of lighting the candles a little before 5, you lit it at 5:01. 5:01. 1 minute. You lit it 1 minute too late. 1 minute. Not talking about 5 hours late. You didn't light it in the middle of Shabbat the next morning. 1 minute. 1 minute difference. Is this bad? This is an atomic bomb. Not bad. It's an atomic bomb. Why? You just violated Shabbat. Doesn't matter that it's 1 minute into it. It doesn't matter that it's it's 1 minute. Now, of course, you're going to say, what about the 18 minutes leeway? Right? The 18 minutes leeway. Now, the 18 minutes leeway, you should know, there's no real thing as far as the 18 minutes leeway. What is the 18 minutes leeway? Really, the 18 minutes leeway is that the time that they publicize online, on applications, on Chabad app, on the internet, on newspapers, Jewish newspapers, is the time you should light the candles. That's actually 18 minutes, approximately 18 minutes before Shabbat really starts. So it's not an 18-minute leeway that you're allowed to light the candles 18 minutes into Shabbat. They're just giving you a leeway just in case you forgot your head at work and you forgot that Shabbat starts in 18 minutes. So just in case you're 5 minutes late, you don't make an atomic bomb go off in your house. That's exactly the reason. There's no 18 minutes late where if you violate Shabbat 18 minutes into Shabbat, it's okay. No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. The lighting time that they publicize is not Shabbat. How do we know this for sure? How do you know this as a practical reason? When you go, you see the time that you light the candles. Let's say it's 5 o'clock. And then you're going to go to the Knesset. You go to the Knesset, and what do they pray? Mincha. They're not praying Shabbat. They're praying Mincha of a regular day. Why? Because it's not Shabbat yet. If it was Shabbat, we wouldn't be able to pray Mincha of a regular day. We'd have to pray Mincha of Shabbat. It's a completely different prayer. We don't pray Mincha of Shabbat, we pray Mincha of regular day. Why? Because Shabbat doesn't come in. Usually Shabbat comes in by the time you get to the song Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi, you're supposed to time it, where that's the time that you actually Shabbat comes in. Whenever the whole crowd turns around and you're saying Lecha Dodi, and you bring in the Kala in, That's in essence the time that you're supposed to time it. Well, that's where Shabbat comes in general. But either way, when you light the candles, when the time reported, and actually Shabbat starts, are two different times. So the Chachamim already knew that we need to warn the people well before. And the reason why is because Hashem told them that you have to have a fence around the fence. If there is a major risk to breach the fence, to violate Shabbat, just so you know, someone that is a Jew that violates Shabbat on a regular basis, not accident, regular basis, decides that he wants to drive on Shabbat, decides he wants to watch TV on Shabbat, decides that he wants to smoke cigarettes on Shabbat, decides that he wants to treat Shabbat like any other day, and he dies without doing tshuva, without repenting for it, without starting to keep Shabbat. What kind of problem does he have? He has the worst possible problem of all problems in history. Why? He is, in the eyes of Hashem, again, me, I like him anyway, but it's not my opinion that matters. My opinion is irrelevant. The opinion of God, according to our Shulchan Aruch, which is the Oral Torah part that explains the laws, according to our Gemara, which I'll mention throughout all of this shiur, according to our 5 books of Moses, in 12 different places, according to the Zohar, and according to pretty much every single book that was ever written about Shabbat in previous generations, before we've weakened to where we are today, he has a decree worse than a murderer. He's considered, in the eyes of Hashem, worse than a mass killer, worse than Hitler. Now, this is not a politically correct statement. I'm sure people are going to want to hang me for it, but it's not my law. You want to blame somebody? Blame God. You have a problem with him, not me. This is the law of God. Why? Because for anyone that was courageous enough to watch the shiur we did last week about Gehenom, we're not going to repeat the details, but nonetheless, there was 7 parts to Gehenom, and there's one part, each part gets worse than the other. The punishment in each one gets worse than the other. There's one part that doesn't end. And there's only a few types of sinners that go to that place, and one of them is a mechalel Shabbat. One of them is a mechalel Shabbat. A murderer, on the other hand, he doesn't even go to the 6th one, he goes to the 4th one. It's bad, it's terrible, but it's not. Why? Because a murderer didn't deny the existence of God. He denied the right for someone else to live. Maybe he got mad, maybe he lost his mind, whatever the reason is, but he didn't deny God. When someone violates Shabbat on a regular basis and decides to live their life as if Shabbat is like any other day, they're denying God on a weekly basis. Logically, you think about it, oh, of course this is worse than a murderer. Why? A murderer is, okay, he's crazy, he's psycho, and so on, but he's not denying God. Again, we have to look at it from the eyes of God, not from the eyes of us. What's right, what's wrong. The eyes of God. If you were a king, would you be more upset if 2 of your people got into a fist fight and one of them gave the other guy a black eye? Or if one of the other guys said, you know what, king, you're not the king. Get out of the chair. Get out of the chair, king. That's what he's saying. When you deny God, that's what he's saying. Get out of the chair. It's my chair. Somebody has to be God. Somebody has to be God. It's either you or him. So, this is as politically incorrect as it is. It's the sad truth that we all have to face. The good news is that once you face it, it's not so sad anymore. Shabbat becomes a happy day. Shabbat becomes a once-a-week vacation. Paid. Paid vacation. How do we know it's paid? The Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 17a, and also the Gemara in Beitzah, 17b, says that any money you spend on Shabbat, special food, special catering, kosher of course, special guests, whatever money you spend, special house, special tzitzit and talit, special kippah, special clothes, any penny you spend on Shabbat, Hashem pays you back in full. When? Right away. That year you're going to get all that money back. That year. So anyone that really believes this and doesn't think it's just a fairy tale you're going to hear in a lecture once in your life is going to do it. Why? Next time the wife says, honey, I'm really tired. I can't cook today. You're going to say, no problem. I can't wait to go to call a catering company, spend $500 because I know I'm going to get it at some point, next week, next month, but I'm going to get it back. Why? Hashem writes cash. Hashem pays cash. This is the same thing with all holidays. This is the same thing with all tzedakah. Any tzedakah that you give for the right reasons, not tzedakah to some place that wants to save cats from going extinct, or save the Dolphin Foundation. Not that, or maybe Holy Cross for them to put more avodah zarah in the world, more idol worship in the world. Not that. I'm talking about Torah. You want to publicize Torah? Hashem says, whatever you give, I'll give you back. Whatever you give, I'll give you back. Why? In essence, all you're doing is you're becoming the middleman that delivers Hashem's money to where its destination. That's why people that really have serious emunah, they don't think twice before they give tzedakah. They don't think, there's no calculation. Why? I have it. I don't need it right now. Okay, you need it. Go. I remember I told you guys a story. There was one guy, there was a family that needed some money. One of the things that we do as an irgun, as an organization, we try to give poor scholars money. Not just anybody that's poor. There's plenty of poor people, and there's plenty of people that give money to poor people. We try to give to poor Torah scholars. And part of the reason why Hashem made the Torah scholars poor in many cases is to give the rest of us a chance to go to Gan Eden. Give the rest of us a chance to go to Gan Eden. Why? Because most of us don't learn Torah all day like them. How are we going to get to Gan Eden? Oh, at least I invested in it. So now, Baruch Hashem, one time there was a family in need, and I said, listen, there's one guy really desperate need, they're shutting off the electric, the kids have no clothes, so on and so forth. Difficult time. We need to come up with as much money as possible. We need to come up with at least a couple of $1,000, which in Israel is a significant amount of money, at least on a monthly basis. And I happened to be on the phone with one guy, and he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to give it to you? You don't make that much money. He goes, no, well listen, I have $3,000 in the bank. I don't need it. I don't need the $3,000. You need $2,000. Give it to him. He needs it more than I do. He goes, yeah, but what about your bills, your rent, your this, your that? He goes, I'm sure just like he gave, this is what he says. I'm sure just like he gave me the $3,000 when I didn't need it, he'll give me the other $2,000 when I need it. That's emunah. That's having faith that Hashem runs the world. That's having faith that Hashem runs the world. Not everybody's at that level, but nonetheless, it pays off to be that way. And by the way, he did get it back fivefold. Now, when it comes down to the mitzvah of Shabbat, if a woman lights candles 1 minute into Shabbat, she's now officially violating Shabbat. This is not during that 18-minute time frame I'm talking about. I'm talking about into Shabbat. 1 minute into Shabbat, she's officially violating Shabbat. Now, what does it mean to violate Shabbat? Once someone is a Jew and violates Shabbat, not an accident, on purpose, they're now considered an idol worshiper in the eyes of Hashem. So now they've put their Judaism on suspension to such an extent that in order for them to get back to being classified as a Jew, they have to do tshuva and keep Shabbat again. So that's why the lighting candles is one of those things that the Gemara says, this is a life risk if you mess it up. Why? Because it's not the candle, it's the violating Shabbat. Same thing with the challah. It's also relevant to Shabbat. Last but not least, the nidah. Why is it that if a woman doesn't keep family purity, that her life is at risk? Why? Because there's a certain level of sins. There's different class of sins. Not all sins are judged the same. For the Noahites, for the non-Jews, they have 7 laws they have to keep. 7 laws. Don't murder, don't commit adultery, and so on and so forth. They have to give them, build themselves a government or a legal system of some kind. Don't eat an animal while it's still alive. So now, fortunate for them, they only have 7 laws. At least they think it's fortunate. The unfortunate part is that they're all judged the same. Meaning, if a Noahide steals, in the times of the Sanhedrin from a couple of thousand years ago, there's no tshuva. There's no, oh, I'm sorry. There's no, I'm sorry. It's death penalty. Now, if a Jew steals in the times of the Sanhedrin, and he gets caught, then he has to pay double. He stole 100, he has to give back 200. So, as you can see, same crime, different punishment. Why? Why is there such a discrimination? Discrimination is not really discrimination. Discrimination is that the Noahide only had 7 laws. The Jew had 613. If we judged all 613 as death penalty, we wouldn't survive a week. But there are certain laws that are worse than others. There are certain crimes that are worse than others. So stealing, like I said, you have to pay double. Stealing, you have to pay double. But on the other hand, like I said, violating Shabbat is the worst sin. There's also another sin that in the Gemara and also in the Reshit Chochmah, it talks about there's certain types of person that goes into that 7th level, into that place that Hashem have mercy on us. If he doesn't do tshuva or she doesn't do tshuva, doesn't leave. And that is someone that goes with a married woman or someone that goes with a nidah. Someone that goes in nidah goes to the 6th level. Someone that goes with a married woman goes to the 7th level. 6th level is horrible, almost as bad as the 7th, but it ends at some point. Either way, when a woman doesn't keep tarat mishpacha, she's playing with not a fire. She's playing with an atomic bomb. She's pressing the button and just hoping it doesn't go off. That's what's happening. Same thing with the guy. So Hashem said, listen, you don't have that many mitzvot as a woman. You don't have to learn Torah every day like a man. You don't have to put tefillin like a man. You have very few mitzvot. You have to be modest. You have to keep family purity. You have to light the candles. Make challah when possible. If you make challah, make it in a kosher way where you have to take a certain portion out. It's very few mitzvot. You have to teach the kids some Torah so they know that they're actually Jewish and they know what to do. And you have to make sure that your husband studies Torah. Very, very few mitzvot. Modesty is like 60% of the mitzvot of a woman. The other 40% are relatively simple. They're not the most difficult in the world. It's difficult to be a woman, but the mitzvot she has to do are not as difficult as the man, simply because there's just less of them. So at least when you do these mitzvot, make sure you do them right. Why? Because similar to a Noahide, if a Noahide messes up on one, he's judged much more harshly on them because there's very few of them. Same thing with a woman. Le'avdil, a kosher, holy Jewish woman, is significantly more important than any Noahide in the world, even if it's Job, the prophet. But the reality is, she has less mitzvot. You have to keep them like they're all priceless diamonds. So the Gemara says that if a woman messes up on one of these mitzvot, there is a very, very heavy punishment unless she does tshuva. Everything that I'm saying to you is always subject to tshuva. You can do tshuva for everything. But that's the point of these shiurim. You have to do tshuva. So when it comes to the candles, to answer your question simply, the candle is significant once you use it. When you don't use it, it's just anything else. But the most important thing is to know that, to use it at the right time. Second thing is, there is a special meaning and a special sgula that if you light candles, you should try to do your best to light with oil instead of the wax. There's a special significance to oil candles than a wax. If you don't have the ability, that's fine, but if you have the ability, you should do it. There's a special meaning, a special significance to it as far as that's concerned. And last but not least, when you are actually lighting the candles, you should make 2 things your habit. Before you light the candles, give some tzedakah. Even if it's 25 cents or $1 or whatever it is, have some tzedakah box next to it. And the second thing is that you should pray for your family. Pray for your family, pray for your loved one. While you're praying, while you're lighting the candles, this is your time. This is your gate. Right now, just imagine it's you and God. Ask away, my daughter. Ask away. What do you want? This is your time. Once Shabbat starts, you're not allowed to pray for your family. Meaning you're not allowed to pray for health. On Shabbat, you're not allowed to pray for health. Shabbat, you're supposed to praise Hashem. So right before it starts, you can pray for whatever. If it's kids, if it's husband, if it's whatever it is, that's the time. Last but not least, men that are not married, men that are single, have to light candles. So it's not just a mitzvah for the women. If you're a single man, you have to light candles. Even if you're a married man, you should be next to the candles unless you're at the shul. But nonetheless, you have to light candles. Next question. Try to answer a shorter response. Meaning? Oh, no. If you live with your parents, then your parents are lighting the candles.
In this week's parasha, in the commentary, it stated something that confused me, that Moses...
This is mine? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam she'konu yidor.
It said that Moses was only in Egypt for 12 years as a prince, but I thought that Moses was some military, genius for the Egyptians, so it confused me.
Okay, so the Midrash, you should know that when it comes to specific ages and timing, there are debates. There are debates on specific ages and timing, on certain things. For example, there's one debate of when Rivka married, at 3 years old or 6 years old. Some even say 9 years old. Either way, it's a young age. But you should know that it's not 3 years old like we have 3 years old. People grew differently back then. What's our proof? When Eliezer came to the well, and she came to him and he said, okay, she watered the camels. How many camels? 10 camels. You know how much water you need for each camel? A 3-year-old of today can't carry 1 bucket for 1 camel, let alone for 10 camels and all the people that rode the camels. So obviously we see that physically she was bigger than a 3-year-old of today. Now, same concept goes with all of the Midrashim when it comes to ages and numbers, but when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, one of the Midrashim, Ma'am Loez, and a few other places that I'm familiar with, is that he lived in Egypt for 20 years. That's what I'm familiar with. He lived in Egypt for 20 years until the age of 20. The first few months he lived with his mom. Then she put him in the basket. He was found by Batya. Batya is the daughter of Paro. That wasn't her birth name. That name was given to her by God. Batya means daughter of God. And after she found him, she wanted somebody to give him, to feed him. Miriam came, as it says in the parasha. He says, I'll find you someone. And he stayed with his mom for 3 years. Stayed with his mom for 3 years. And then he went back to Paro's house, and he stayed there until he was 20 years old. That's when he saw the two, the Jew and the Egyptian fighting. The Jew and the Egyptian fighting. And then he killed the Egyptian. And then he saw the Jew and the Jew fighting. He saw 2 Jews fighting. And he told them to stop. And they didn't stop. Now this is a good way for me to go into some of the things I want to talk about. And I'm sure you guys are going to have other questions. But this is really, really important. That needs to be talked about, because I doubt that you heard this anywhere. Not only in the parasha, but in general. Now there is a midrash, which is part of the Oral Torah, about some behind-the-scene things that happened in last week's Parashat Shmot. Does anybody know who the 2 Jews are that fought? Datan and Aviram. Why did they fight? Why did they fight? Does anybody know why they fought? Why did they fight?
They fought because, wait a minute. I remember reading it in the Midrash last week.
Okay, so you know it. I'm going to remind you of it. What happened is, the night before, the day before, remember, there was an Egyptian that killed a Jew, that fought with a Jew, that beat up a Jew. Why did the Egyptian decide to beat up a Jew? Why was this singled out? I mean, we were slaves in Egypt. We were slaves in Egypt. All of us were being beat up. Why is this one specific one being mentioned? I mean, all of us heard the midrashim of how they used to take 150 babies every single day and kill them, and Paro Yimach Shemo would bathe in their blood. We heard this. Because he had tzarat, he had a spiritual and physical disease, where his necromancer said that's the only cure is Jewish blood. That's what they said. He has to bathe, he took 150 babies. What else did they do to kids? If the Jews didn't work fast enough and strong enough and so on, didn't meet their quota, they take the kid and put him instead of a block of cement, they put the kid there instead. Horrible, horrible things. By the way, my Rav Ephraim, Shichyeh, wrote a book, he hasn't published it yet, proving that every single thing that they did in the Holocaust already happened in Egypt. Everything. It was literally like Hitler, Yimach Shemo, took a blueprint from Paro. Same thing. So now, why is this mentioned then? Why is this guy mentioned that he got beat up by the Egyptian? Okay, everybody got beat up by the Egyptians. What's the story? If you remember, in the book of Deuteronomy, later on, we're going to see it. There's going to be a maaseh, in Leviticus. There's going to be a maaseh of something scary. Something scary where there's a person by the name of Ben Shulamit, the son of Shulamit. The son of Shulamit, it says, Ben Isha Yisraelit v'hu Ben Ish Mitzri betoch Bnei Yisrael v'yinatzu b'machane Ben Yisraelit v'Isha Yisraelit. ויקרוב בן האישה הישראלית את השם ויקלל ויביאו אותו אל משה ושם אמו שלומית. שלומית, not שולמית. שלומית. בת דברי למטה דן. So in the book of Leviticus, we see that there's a person that cursed the name of God. Cursed the name of God, and what happens to him? The people catch him, and they say, okay, Moshe, what do we do with him? Moshe asks Hashem, and he says, okay, give him a death penalty. They kill him. Who is this guy? In last week's Midrash, in Parashat Shmot, there's a hidden secret of who this Ben Shlomit is. There was one time a woman named Shlomit. Otherwise righteous woman. Otherwise very nice lady. But she liked to socialize with guys. She liked to say hello. Not like have meetings with them, go to the bar with them. But she liked to, hi, you know those people, hi. They say hi to everyone that moves. Hi, they're ultra nice. Ultra nice people. What's wrong with being ultra nice? The problem with being ultra nice is that guys don't take it as ultra nice. Guys don't think like that. I keep telling you guys week after week for years. And I try to educate the women about how guys think. Guys don't think nice. Guys think, she said hi to me, she wants me. That's how guys think. Doesn't matter that she's 20 years younger than you. Doesn't matter that she's married. Doesn't matter that she's this. That doesn't make a difference. A woman says hi to me, oh, she wants me. For sure. That's... Every guy is convinced every woman wants him. That's the mentality of a guy. Unless he has Torah in himself. Unless he has Torah. He has a warped mentality of reality. That's the reality. A guy looks at a woman, he looks at her like farmers look at cattle. That's a reality. Anyone that denies it is denying reality. They look at her as something that they're going to be with. They look at her intimately. They look at her inappropriately and so on. A woman looks at a guy and she thinks, wow, he looks nice. She thinks about his personality. She thinks, wow, he looks like a wonderful guy. He looks generous. He looks funny. He looks smart. Most normal women, that's the way they look at men. They think about their character traits. They think about their personality. Guys, on the other hand, the last thing on their mind is their character trait. Last thing. So now this Shulamit was very, very nice. And she said hi to everyone. And one day, the Egyptian that was working there, that was beating up all the Jews, noticed she said hi to him too. She says, oh, she wants me. But she's married. Okay, so you know what? I can fix that. So he came in the middle of the night and he told her husband, go work. Why? But we don't start work for another 2 hours. Go work now. He sent him to work and then he went back into the bed with Shlomit, Shem Merachem. And she didn't know. There's no lights back then. She didn't know anything. It's not like she committed the sin on purpose or anything like that. She wasn't a rasha. She wasn't wicked. She thought her husband is going inside, is back in. And she ended up being with him. She ended up being with him. And then as he left, he saw that the husband came back. And he realized that the husband knew what just happened. Now the husband knew that his wife didn't do it on purpose. But nonetheless, he knew what happened. So the next day, he said, that's it, I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you. Now her brother came and said, no, you're not leaving us. She didn't do it on purpose. She didn't do it on purpose. He says, yeah, but I don't care if she did it on purpose. She didn't do it on purpose. I'm leaving. And what they do, they start fighting. Who's that? The Tana Aviram. The Tana Aviram were brother-in-laws. They were fighting, the two Jews were fighting, not because they had nothing to do in their life. They're both slaves anyway. What are they fighting about? They're fighting because he wanted to leave his wife, because his wife was just raped by this Egyptian that Moshe Rabbeinu killed. So here, Rabotai, we see something that ended up started with a very simple, nice hello, ended up turning into something awful. He wanted to leave her. What ended up happening is that a child was born out of this marriage. Now this child, unfortunately, since it came from the non-Jew, it came from rape, it came from a bad place, the child wasn't exactly accepted by his friends. He wasn't accepted into any one of the tribes. So he said, why is it my fault that this happened to me? So in essence, he got mad at God and he cursed God. This is like people that decide to abandon Judaism because of bad Jews. I tell you for myself, before I did tshuva, my biggest excuse of not being religious was because of bad Jews. I'd see bad Jews, people that pretend to be religious, but they're worse than anyone else. People that pretend to be righteous, but they're worse than anyone else. People that look a certain way, but they're worse than anyone else. People that, mamash, like I look at myself, I'm like, listen, I'm a decent human being. I'm not, I may not keep all the laws, I may not learn Torah, but I'm not stealing, I'm not killing, I'm not raping, I'm not doing anything bad. What's so bad about me? Look at these people with the beard and the hat, they're doing all of those things. I'm better than them. So as long as I saw the world in that kind of worldview, I couldn't become religious. I couldn't justify becoming religious. And the reason why is because I thought that Judaism depends on the Jews. That's as far from the truth as can possibly be. The reason why is because Judaism does not depend on the Jews. Judaism depends on the Torah. With or without the Jews, there is Torah. With or without the Jews, there is Judaism. How do we know? Before we got to Mount Sinai, there was Torah already. 974 generations before the world was created, Hashem already created the Torah. When we went to Mount Sinai, Hashem says, okay, I have the Torah for you. We said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll do it. But if, hypothetically speaking, we said no, and someone else came, the Greeks came, the Romans came, the Arabs came, somebody else came and said, no, Hashem won't take the Torah. What would happen? They would become the Jews. Meaning that what makes you a Jew is not necessarily just because your mom is a Jew. Not just because you're a nice guy. Not just because of any other reason other than the fact that you comply with the Torah. That's what makes you a Jew. It's not just your mother. Why? And the reason why we know it's not just your mother is because there's conversion. If it was just your mother, conversion wouldn't be available. You wouldn't be able to convert to Judaism. Because no matter how many times you read the Torah, your mom doesn't change. Your mom doesn't change. There's many times you learn the Torah, your mom doesn't change. So we know that Torah is the only thing that makes you Jewish. And that's one of the most important things for every single Jew to know, especially when the Yetzer Hara brings a bad Jew in front of you, and you see this bad Jew looks the part but doesn't act it. It doesn't make a difference. You still have to do everything. You still have to be a good Jew. You can't use him as an excuse. In Shamayim, they're not going to say, oh, you know what? We're not going to send you to Gehinnom because you were surrounded by a bunch of criminals. That's not going to work. Everyone has their own judgment. Everyone has their own thing. There's no free lunch there. There's no, oh yeah, listen, I didn't grow up a certain way. Did you know you were Jewish? Yes. So? Yeah, but I didn't grow up a certain way. So? You didn't grow up a millionaire, but you still wanted to be one. You didn't grow up a millionaire. But that didn't stop you from becoming one. That didn't stop you from trying to attain a million. But you grew up poor. All of the millionaires grew up poor. You look at the Forbes 500, maybe a handful of them grew up for money. Maybe a handful of them. Most of them grew up dirt poor. That didn't stop them from attaining money. That didn't stop them from succeeding. They're not going to use the excuse, oh, I didn't grow up rich, so therefore I didn't become rich. No, the opposite. So you can't go up to Shamayim and say, no, listen, I didn't grow up religious, therefore I finished my life. I lived another 70, 80, 90 years not religious. You can't use that excuse. You can't use it in anywhere else. Even more so with Hashem. So in today's world, most people think that there's a free lunch available if you're born religious. Or if you're not born religious, people always justify their behavior in different ways. I did for many years also, until I realized that it's all nonsense. Now the problems that we have in the Torah were how a simple hello, a simple gesture, a simple, really, really nice woman ended up becoming a disaster. Not only a broken marriage, but also a child out of wedlock, a child with not someone that's not your husband, and the child ends up being a wicked person, and he ends up getting a death penalty. I mean, one thing leads to another. It's a domino effect from hell. Now, the key for me to mention all this whole story is to tell you that all of this is relevant today. All of it is relevant to you and me today. Now, in the Mishnah, which is a critical part of our Oral Torah, in Masechet Kala, it says, המשגר כוס של ברכה לאישה שלא מדעת בעלה, חייב מיתה, מפני שדעתו רבה עליו. Someone who sends a glass, a cup of blessing. Let's say you do Birkat Hamazon. The traditional way of doing Birkat Hamazon, after you finish eating, you bless Hashem for giving you the food. When you eat bread, and you eat a full meal, you do Birkat Hamazon. It's the number one most important blessing in all of Judaism. It's more important than Shema Yisrael. It's more important than Amidah. It's more important than anything else. If anyone that wants to be successful in life, have good health, have good kids, and so on, try your best to do as many Birkat Hamazon a day as possible. Meaning, eat bread at least once or twice a day. Just for the sake of doing Birkat Hamazon, because you can't do it without. You can't do Birkat Hamazon just for eating an apple. You can only do it if you eat bread. Because all the things that you want, whether it be money, a good life, and so on and so on, all the things you want are in Birkat Hamazon. All of the special secrets, all of the requests that you would want are in it. Now, the traditional way of doing Birkat Hamazon is to have the one that recites it for people. Let's say, for example, if there's 3 men that ate, one of them makes the blessing for the other 2. It's called Zimun. If there's 10, there's one that does it for 10 people. The traditional way of doing it is the one that does the blessing has a glass of wine. And after he finishes the blessing, he does a blessing on the wine. He drinks the wine, and then he does a blessing again on the wine itself. So the Mishnah says that this wine is not just any wine. This wine is a wine of the most important blessing in all of Judaism, meaning it's a big deal wine. Meaning it's holy. It's not like I just felt like having a drink. It's not like I went to a bar and I met some woman and I give her a drink. This is, you're doing it out of a mitzvah. Someone that sends any wine, but even if it's a blessing wine, to a woman that's not his wife, not only wants to be nice. You had Shabbat dinner, you had Shabbat afternoon, you had guests. You had guests in your house, and there's some woman, some single woman or some married woman, some married woman, that's not your wife, and you say, hey, listen, hey, Martha, here's a glass of wine. Have a drink. You know, it's a blessing wine. I just cut the most for everybody. Here, have a drink. You send her the wine. The Mishnah says, Chayav Mita. He deserves a death penalty. Why? He just did a mitzvah. You did the blessing. I just told you, biggest blessing in all of Judaism. Birkat Hamazon, amazing. The wine, amazing. Sharing is caring. What happened? Why chayav mita? Why death penalty? It says, because it's not with permission from her husband, and it'll cause him to have yetzirah in his mind. What yetzirah in his mind? That minor connection for 2 seconds. 2 seconds it took her to say yes. You said, hey, Martha, here's a wine. And she says yes. Or she says no. It's irrelevant. Yes or no. That 2 seconds of communication, that's yetzirah. You have a connection. Now it's inappropriate. Why? She's married. And not to you. As a man, you're going to start thinking crazy things. It's a reality of life. If you're denying it, you're denying reality. Even more so, Rabbi אומר, מפני שיצרה רבה עליו, וכן בני חבורה ששגרו כוס של ברכה לאישה שלא מדעת בעלה, חייבים איתה, מפני שדעתן רבה עליהן. It says, even if it's like a group of guys, we're all having, I don't know, Lag BaOmer, a bunch of people, you're having a barbecue, everybody's having a fun, everything is great. You know, people love to do this stuff. Everybody loves Lag BaOmer, just nobody knows why we do it. You tell them Lag BaOmer, good. You tell them Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like, who's that? Is he from Chabad? Is he from Breslev? So, people love to have parties. Love to have parties. And parties, the typical Israeli, European way of doing things, sometimes Russian too, American, I'm not really sure, but nonetheless, people get too comfortable with other people's wives. How comfortable? They become friends. Hey, Steve, are you coming over tonight? Yeah, I'll come over. Yeah, and your guy comes over and the husband's not there, but he still hangs out anyway. And they have conversations and they talk on the phone and everything is fine and dandy and they have like Boma but together. And Steve sends Martha a drink. Hey, Martha, that was a good time last week. Yeah, at the other barbecue and this. And they're friends. And everyone thinks this is okay. Our Torah says, even if it's during a group, even if it's during a barbecue, even if it's a whole event, and all the guys feel comfortable because their wives are there and the other guys' wives are there. It's not like they're hiding it from their wives. Even if their wife is there and they're not hiding it. The fact that you had this communication with someone that's not your wife, you deserve a death penalty. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara, you just let him in. You just let him in. Now, most people are going to look at me like I have 8 heads. Because in today's world, there's even a term for it. It's called platonic relationships. There's many men that have girlfriends. There's many men that have girlfriends. In fact, it's encouraged sometimes. Sometimes men or women are proud of it. And tell you know how many guy friends I have? Like they're proud. You know how many guy friends I have? I only have guy friends. I don't get along with women. I don't get along with women. I only have guy friends. I'm friends with 10 guys. I'm friends with 6 guys. I'm friends with 25 women. You know how many women I'm friends with? People are proud of this. So it's platonic relationships, meaning they're just friends, but there's no touching. News is there's no such thing as platonic relationship. Any guy that's friends with a woman, it's only because of an ultimate purpose that he's just waiting for the opening. That's just a reality. Any woman that thinks otherwise is denying reality. Guys don't think like you. That's a reality. And that's including religious guys. Including religious guys. Now, when a woman looks at a guy, she says, oh, he's gentle, he's nice, he's talkative, he's thoughtful, he's smart, he's funny, he's generous, he's handsome. And then she thinks about her husband. My husband smells bad. Because he works with cars, or works at the garbage, he works at the this. My husband wasn't nice to me last night. My husband doesn't even want to talk to me, only wants to watch sports or learn or this or that. My husband doesn't think about me. Shabbat, he forgot to buy me flowers. My husband is an idiot. My husband is not funny at all. My husband is so cheap I have to beg him for $150 a week just so I could survive. And my husband, whatever, handsome, no handsome, he's fat now, who cares? He was handsome when I met him. All of a sudden, this innocent tzadikah, this kosher woman, sees Steve, they gave her a drink. Wow, he's so thoughtful. He thought about me during Lag BaOmer. He thought about me, and he sent me a drink. How nice is Steve? How nice is whoever it is? How nice is Yaakov? How nice is Reuven? He sent me a drink, and my own husband didn't send me a drink. All of a sudden, all of the things that a husband isn't, he is. All of the things that he is, a husband isn't. And Hashem Melachim, what happens in our mind? Now, in the Gemara, Masechet Sotah, it says that when Yosef was called Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik, why was he called Yosef HaTzadik? Because he did not fail the test of wasting seed, the test of his violating his brit. When the wife of Potiphar tried to entice him to be with her, this was not a normal woman. The Gemara says she was one of the 4 most beautiful women that ever lived. Meaning this wasn't exactly an easy test. But the pasuk says, the verse says, and Yosef came home to do his job. What does it mean he came home to do his job? The Gemara in Masechet Sotah has a debate. Did he come home to do his job, meaning to go work, or did he come home to do his job, meaning to be with Potiphar's wife? Meaning, he said, I've had it. All the tests, all the clothes, all the dresses she shows me every day for a year already. I said, I've had it. I'm going with her. He decided, I'm failing. That's it. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. No one's going to be at the house. I'm not going to get caught. Once and for all, I'm going to get business done. Once and for all. It's not your wife. I can't do it anymore. Yosef came, Gemara says, if Gemara didn't say it, it's not your death penalty for saying such a thing. Gemara says he came to the house to be with Potiphar's wife. And the last second, before Mama, she was ready to go, he saw an image of his father on the wall. So like a hologram of his father, of Yaakov. And Yaakov said to him, you know, if you do this, there won't be 12 tribes. There'll be 11. You will not be included in the tribes. There will never be a Yosef. And so on and so forth. And at that moment, that gave him the extra chizuk to overcome it. But the Gemara says you have to do something that's beyond our imagination. You have to take his hand and literally break his fingers, smash him into the floor to create enough pain in his body to overcome the desire. Because he was so aroused that for him to just stop now, okay, I'll see you later. That wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. It wasn't I'll see you later. It wasn't happening, I'll see you later. He's still human. Holy, tzaddik, this, still human. You have to create enough pain in order to overcome the desire. The Gemara actually says that such a mystical thing, such a magical thing happened that the semen actually left through his fingernails. This is obviously beyond what our norm is. But nonetheless, the point is that he overcame something that no one else was able to overcome. And because of him overcoming this test, that the Gemara says is why the sea of reeds opened in the last moment. Because it saw the grave, the tomb of Yosef come, and it said, oh, if he's coming, okay. Just like he ran away from sin, we'll run away from, we'll run away and we'll split the sea. But here we learn something really significant. We learn that even the most righteous weren't necessarily able to overcome such a test. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir Bar Anes almost failed the same test. David HaMelech almost. Nonetheless, some of the most righteous people in the world have actually almost failed this test, and some actually did fail it. That's why there's a rule in the Torah that there's no one that's above that. There's no one that's above arayot, meaning sex crimes, meaning the issues of immodesty and so on. No one can pass that test. No one should trust themselves. No one should trust themselves. No, I'm working with just some woman in my office, just me and her at 8 o'clock at night, but don't worry, it's just platonic. You're not allowed to take such a test. You're not allowed to put yourself in such a circumstance. To such an extent that if, let's say, someone that's the holy rabbi, holy, everyone knows him, he's a little mini Moshe Rabbeinu, and they say, listen, Rabbi, you have 2 roads to pick. You pick the right road, you go on the right road, you get to the destination in 2 minutes. Problem is, there's immodesty there. There's this, there's that, there's immodesty there. All the women there don't know how to wear clothes like everywhere else in America. You pick the left road, it's the back alley, there's nobody there. Problem is, it's going to take you 2 hours. Instead of 2 minutes, 2 hours. Because you have to go all the way around, you have to do this, but there's no one there. So the little mini rabbi says, 2 minutes, why am I going to waste 2 hours? I need to go learn Torah. I'll just go to 2 minutes, but I'll close my eyes. I'll close my eyes, I won't look at anything. Gemara says he's a rasha. He's wicked. Why is he wicked? He closed his eyes. In today's age, anyone that closes their eyes on the streets is considered tzaddik. Why is this guy closing his eyes considered rasha? Why is he considered wicked? Why did you allow yourself to be tested like that? How do you know you're going to pass? How could you trust yourself to pass such a test? Rabbi Akiva almost failed. Rabbi Meir almost failed. Yosef HaTzadik almost failed. How are you taking such a test? Were you better than them? So, the issue of space between men and women in today's world is literally like it's confusing to people. You tell people they should keep space between them, especially when you're married and so on. People look at you like you have 8 heads. But then, you look at the marriage statistics. In the secular world, you have over 80% divorce rate. In the religious world, the percentage of divorce is much lower, but nonetheless, it's growing. But one thing for sure, that I know from experience, forget about divorce rates. Forget about secular religious. One thing for sure is that it's almost impossible to find a happy home. It's almost impossible to find a happy marriage. Almost impossible. People pretend to be happy in front of other people. They're at the party, they're at Shabbat dinner, they're at an event, they're at this, yeah, it's my wife, yeah. As soon as they get in the car, they want to stab each other. Oh, you had to look at me that way? You had to do this, why did I bring you? Why did I marry you? I hate your mother, I hate your sister. They start cursing each other out. They're bringing up, oh, Shem Elachem. And I'm not talking about secular people. I'm talking about religious. Secular is even worse. I have disaster after disaster. It's like they being reported on a weekly basis. One of the things that is mamash the Satan be'atzmo. It's mamash the Satan himself in many, many homes. Jews, non-Jews, religious, non-religious, is the internet. Internet. Internet itself is literally the Satan himself. Why? On one end, we all need it. You need it for work. You need it to function. You can't function without internet in today's world. It's just a reality. Internet on a computer, internet on your phone, internet here, internet there. You need it. You need it. If you have a business, unless you live in, in Mongolia, you need the internet. You need to advertise, you need to get customers, you need to do a lot of things on the internet. In reality today, if there's no internet, there's no business. It's not like the old days where people drive around until they find a shop. People look at their phone, I need a car shop. Oh, okay, over here, I'm going down the street, it's 5 minutes for me. People don't look at, driving around, I'm going to find a shop. People look at it in a way where they say, listen, I'm going to look at my computer, what's the closest place to me? After that, the internet has provided them enough information to say what's the closest place, that's the best place. There's star rating and this rating and that rating and so on and so forth. Meaning that the internet is no different than electricity. Just like you can't live without electricity, you can't live without internet in most places, in most houses, in most lives. But even this, when it's misused, can become dangerous. If you I had a friend that used to have a business, used to have this special technology to heat your floors. Special technology, different types of, whatever, special tech doesn't make a difference. Special technology to heat your floors, special technology to heat your blanket, special technology to heat your pillow, special technology to heat anything you want. Wonderful. Obviously, all of this depends on electricity. And if I have a chair using this technology, and I want to get nice and cozy in the freezing cold weather in Florida for the first time since I've been here in 3 years, Last couple of weeks, it's freezing here. So I wanted a special warm chair, and I'm using this technology. Baruch Hashem, I don't feel freezing anymore, right? But if there's a malfunction in the button, and instead of, let's say, there being, for a hypothetical example, instead of there being 50 watts going, there's 5,000 watts. This just turned into an electric chair. It's not, what do you mean? It's electricity. It's misused, it becomes a weapon. If it's misused, Rabotai, it becomes a weapon. The internet can help your business, can help even your marriage. How? Instead of your wife going out to see Carlos and Steven at the supermarket, she can shop on the internet instead, and not go out there to see all these strange people, looking at like she's cattle. I tell you myself, happiest days of my life is when my wife tells me, oh, I just shopped. Where? Online, never leave the house. Why? I don't want to go in anywhere. Because I know everybody looks in a certain way. That's just a reality. I tell my wife all the time, the less you leave the house, the better. The less I leave the house, the better. We have to leave. But nonetheless, if you don't have to, why? For what? So, the internet can help you. Why? Instead of going to the supermarket, you can press a few buttons and the shopping comes to your house. Who's better than you? If instead of going to spend 2 hours at some toy store or some clothing store, you can press the 2 buttons and it comes to your house, why not? So this can help. But, Rabotai, if it's misused, it's a weapon. If the credit card becomes like a slot machine, and she starts spending money like it's air, it becomes a weapon that creates shlom bayit problems. Even more so, even more dangerous than money, because money is paper at the end of the day. It's not even paper anymore, it's digital. If she decides to go on one of these social networks to become reconnected with our old school buddies, and all of a sudden, Steve from 1987 says, oh, hey, Wilma, how are you? How you been? How's everything? How's everything? How's it going? How's it this? How's it that? Oh, you have 2 kids. Oh, you have a husband. Wow, great. And all of a sudden, she goes, hey, husband David, how are you? Yeah, I just met Steve from high school from 20 years ago. Oh, who's Steve? Oh, you remember Steve? There's a whole thing, a conversation. And David is an idiot. And he says, oh, yeah, you should reconnect. You should tell him to come over. You should tell Steve to come over, see what happens, see how is he doing. And little this idiot David realizes that Steve just came over not because he cares about, it's because maybe he's looking for a new girlfriend. He just let the wolf inside the house. Why? He let her have a boyfriend. Ma, but he's only my friend on Facebook. Now you guys think that I'm exaggerating. I know. I can tell you I'm dealing right now, this second, with at least a half a dozen more, almost a dozen actually, marriages that are on the brink of breaking. Why? Because of social media. All of them religious. So here's it. If it's secular, listen, secular people change husbands and wives like underwear. You look at the celebrities, they're all married at least 5 times to be a celebrity. You can't be a celebrity without getting married 5 times. Until you're married 5 times, you're not a celebrity. You're like a second-class celebrity. Once you're married 5 times, oh, you're Hollywood. Okay, Baruch Hashem, you're welcome to Hollywood. You're welcome to Hollywood. You're married 5 times. But in a religious world, it's unacceptable. I remember when I was a kid, divorce, Chas v'shalom, who gets divorced these days? What are you talking about? Divorce? Don't even say such a word. It was a curse word when I was a kid. Saying divorce is like a curse word. What do you mean divorce? Who gets divorced? We'll die angry and not get divorced. We'll die angry and not get divorced. Who gets divorced? Today, people change marriages like they change underwear. But this is not something that's explainable without realizing where the source is. The source is that we forgot what our Torah said. Our Torah said that we have to have modesty. Modesty is not just your clothes. Modesty is also not just your speech. Modesty is also what kind of friends you have. Modesty is also what kind of friends you allow yourself to have. Modesty is your entire life. How you run your marriage, what kind of life you're going to have. Now, when people feel like it's okay to have these platonic relationships, they're opening themselves up for a disaster. And right now, there's a few of the relationships that I'm trying to save are relationships that started not even on Facebook. You know, Facebook, you would think, you know, he sees her picture, she sees his picture, whatever. They start talking, socializing. After a few months, boyfriend, girlfriend, even though he's married and she's married, and there's kids here and there's kids here. They don't care. They'll break houses that way. People thought that Facebook was Satan himself. They don't realize that's Satan's little brother. Satan's little brother. Why? Because it's obvious. It's obvious. He sees as a picture. She has a picture. Everyone knows. It's not. You're still trying to hide. Where's the Satan himself? Text messaging. WhatsApp. Regular text. Why? You have these groups. And sometimes they're Torah groups. I have, 25 groups. 25 groups. We spread Torah all day. But there's always a nochel. There's always some sleazebag in the group. There's always a sleazebag that goes into the group and looks at the directory of the group, looks at the numbers, and he starts texting different women because it says the name of the woman. Especially the women that don't realize how guys think. And they put their picture as a profile. So he sees a pretty picture. He sees a phone number. Hey, I just got some digits. It's like it's better than going to the bar.
They still use that?
Hey, listen, I'm from the 80s. What can you tell you? I'm old. I just got a number. How do you get a number? Doing nothing. You join a Torah group. Hey, look, Hashem sent me a shidduch. Hashem sent me a shidduch. This is the nochlim of today. You guys think that this is only from this balich. No, let me tell you. There are people that pretend to be religious. They'll even tell you they learn in yeshiva. They even tell you they're going to learn in kollels. They tell you, oh no, I'm divorced with 2, 3 kids, but she really hurt me, and she this, and she that, but I'm really a nice guy. Okay, if you're a nice guy, why are you talking to a married woman? If you're so religious, why are you talking to a married woman? Why? Don't you know that someone that goes with a married woman, there's no end to his suffering? No end. No end. Him and the Mechalel Shabbat are in the same place permanently. What happens permanently? Eventually, they get destroyed, and just whatever Hashem put in there, he takes back. There is no tshuva for them in the next world. There's no gilgul, there's no reincarnation, there's nothing. There's only suffering. If you're so religious, why are you doing it? But this is Yetzirah. Rabotai, today, you have to protect your wives and husbands more than you would protect anything else in life. Why? Because the amount of Yetzirah that's out there is mamash crazy. And that's why I was telling you, some of you, before the shiur. Anyone that literally just wants to survive. I'm not talking about prosper. I'm not even talking about Olam Haba and you're with Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Akiva and all of that. I'm talking about just simply survive and you're going to be okay when Mashiach comes or after 120. You have to be religious, but not the type of religious that's exterior only. Religious where you're working on your inside on a daily basis. Religious where you're fixing yourself on a daily basis, because if not, you won't survive. There are plenty of so-called religious people that are making sins worse than any secular person I've ever met. Why? It all starts their Yetzirah sometimes starts on the internet. They go to these different pornographic websites, or they make certain phone calls, or they go to certain parties. And Hashem Elachem, what kind of stuff happens in the world. And unfortunately, I have to deal with this stuff all the time. Why? Because after the disaster strikes, who do they call? Not Ghostbusters, it's me. They call me with this stuff. Yeah, listen, I'm old. What can I tell you? I'm old. So, just to give you a little bit of an understanding of what the Torah thinks about this. Rav Ovadia, alav hashalom, saw that there's these Lag BaOmer parties. at the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote the Zohar, was Kodesh Kodeshim, the entire mystical aspect of the Torah. A large part of it is from him. Not all of it, but a large part of it is from him. And people thought that they're going to elevate themselves in holiness by going to his grave. And they would have all of these parties, bonfires, and so on. Rav Ovadia said it's asur to go there. Not allowed to go there. Why? He said the amount of Immodesty and the amount of marriages that are broken after Lag BaOmer, he says, is unreal. He ran the Bedin. After everybody goes there, they party, like it's 1999, and they go and they want to get divorced after. Why? Because they found a new boyfriend. They found a new boyfriend, they found a new girlfriend, they found a new this, they want to go to Bedin. Who do they go to? Rav Ovadia. He says it's not once, twice, 3 times. He says enormous amount of marriages get broken up at these parties. People think that they're doing a mitzvah, it ends up being the destruction of their own home.
What about Simchat Torah? Do they drink?
Not allowed. First of all, you're not allowed to drink when the Torah is out. So people that are drinking when the Torah is out, when they're lifting the Torah, they're violating the Torah. They're making a very, very big mistake. The second thing is that the Simchat Torah, the guy is supposed to celebrate in one room, the women are supposed to celebrate in another room. Any of these shuls that have the people celebrate together, you're not even allowed to go to those places. You're not allowed to celebrate, you're not allowed to dance together. Conservative shul is not a shul, it's a church. Same thing as going to a church. Now, so moving forward, there is in the Gemara Masechet Yomah, page 21b. It gives a definition of some of these fires that I talked about in last week's shiur about Gehinom and so on. There is a concept called Esh Ochelet Esh, fire that eats fire. Now, sometimes a person that has a big yetzara for sex, big yetzara, every woman that moves, he has to look. Everything that he has to, even though he's married, even if he has kids and so on, or even if he doesn't make a difference. Or perhaps a woman that needs a new boyfriend every week. For such a person, they need Esh Ochelet Esh. What's Esh Ochelet Esh? The only way they can overcome this huge desire, only way, is by them learning about the harsh punishment. That shiur is for them. That's the only way. Why? Normal lectures are not going to work for them. They need fire to beat the fire that's inside them. Regular people may not need it. Regular people tell them this is not good for you. Marriage is going to break up. You shouldn't do it. It's against God. It's against this. Normal people, it's fine. Some people, unfortunately, have such a huge yetzirah for this. That's their tikkun. Only way for them to fix themselves is with harsh stuff. Harsh lectures where they know the real truth that many people can't handle. Next thing is that you have to understand that a simple flirtatious behavior, just being nice. I had one woman one time send me a message or call me, and said she moved into the area that I was living, and she wanted me to study with her husband or something like that, and she was this, and she heard about me from this one and that one, and da-da-da-da-da. And simply because of the tone of her voice, I never returned a call. Why? She thought she was making a friend. I'm not interested in making friends. I'm interested in remaining married. So I waited a few days to answer her by text. No call. Why? Why are you going to put yourself in trouble? Why you put yourself in front of a test? Why? For what? For what? What purpose is it going to serve? What if the voice that sounds the way it sounds is also matched by behavior? What if? You don't know. Why take the test? For what? Today, little cute, holy girls are taught that it's a good thing to be flirtatious. You see any of these Shema Achem, I mean, my wife, God bless her, she watches literally every single thing she gives my kids to watch, our kids to watch. She has to make sure it's digital, it's controlled, it's cartoon, it's this. But even the cartoons, you have to watch them before you give it to the kids. Why? You wouldn't believe what they show these kids. The behavior of these cartoon characters are worse than anything else I ever imagined as a kid. Worst. Why? They teach the kids to be flirtatious. They teach the kids to be boyfriend-girlfriend at 6 years old. There's shows of boyfriend-girlfriend at 6 years old. Shem Hashem. We're taught everything the opposite. I had a girl that tzadikah, did tshuva, everything was great. She says, I want to get married, but my dad won't let me. I said, why isn't your dad won't let me? Why won't let you? You're 18 years old, Baruch Hashem. What's wrong? He says, no, he thinks I should date her for a little while. I'm like, what do you mean a little while? He goes, no, he thinks I should have a few boyfriends for the next few years. This is her father. This is an idiot father wants her to go be husband-wife with a few boyfriends until she finally picks one. It's not coming from the streets. It's coming from inside our homes. Rava, one of the people in the Gemara, one of the sages in the Gemara, lived 400 years. He learned a few things in those 400 years. Few. And he said, Ish ve'isha. The word ish is man. Isha is woman. The way each are spelled, Isha is spelled Aleph, Shin, Hey. Ish is spelled Aleph, Yud, Shin. Meaning they have two common letters, Aleph and Shin. And two letters that are different, which is Yud and Hey. Yud and Hey, individually or together, spell the name of God. There's different names of God. Individually or together, spell the name of God. He says, when an Ish and Isha are together, you have marriage. But once you remove the God part, the God out of each one of the Ish or the Isha, you remove the Yud from the Ish, from the man, you remove the letter Hey from the word Isha, what do you have left? Fire. Once you remove God from your life, all you have is fire. All you have is disaster. No marriage, no children, no nothing. Nothing matters. Once a person puts God aside, whether it's a male or a female, nothing will stop them from breaking homes. Nothing will stop them from doing anything. No kippah, no tzitzit, nothing. Anyone that thinks that divorce rates are steady or we're living better because we're religious, you should know there are actually literally groups like peer groups made of people that are coming from the religious world after divorce, and now they're trying to figure out a way of how to move on with their life. Meaning that this is like a movement. This is not like a happenstance. People, contact me all the time. Why don't we do some shiurs for divorced people? Why do divorced people need to have shiurs? Just learn Torah. You wouldn't be divorced. Unfortunately, this is the part of Torah that's not taught very often. It's called Mussar. Mussar is the character development. If we develop our character, we never get divorced. But because we don't, because Mussar has almost become like a curse word in Judaism, many people get married, but they don't know how to be married. Children get married. They may be 20, 25, 30 years old, but they're still children in their mind. And they get married, they still think they can look at other girls. They get married, they can still think that they could be flirtatious with other guys. They get married, they still think they should look good for everyone else, not just their husband. They get married thinking that they should flaunt their money in front of all the girls, even though they're not their wives. People live their lives the opposite of what God said, and then they're surprised they get divorced. So, again, some divorces are because one person is sick, one person is whatever, but the reality is that many marriages are broken because of lack of modesty. And I don't just mean clothes. Clothes obviously is a very big factor, but it's not just clothing. It's literally sending a drink. Sending a drink to someone that's not your wife. In Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, page 31b, Natan Tzutzita, this person named Natan Tzutzita, gave a loan to a certain person. What happened? There was a person that got arrested. And his wife came to him in the jail. He said, "What should I do?" He said, "Listen, the only one that has the money is Natan Tzutzita. He's the gvir. He's the rich guy. Go to him. Go to Natan, and get the money to bail me out." Now she goes to Natan's house, and Natan really always was in love with her. She comes to his house, and he says, "Yeah, I need a loan for my husband." He says, "For you, anything. For you, anything. If I could only have you." And she says, "Listen, you have me. I'm here. You're saving my husband's life. And you have a choice. You have a choice. I'm at your mercy. There's nothing I can do. But the reality is you have a choice. You could either take advantage of your desires, overcome them, and be like Yosef Tzaddik. Your choice." And Natan Tzutzita overcomes his desires, and he lets her go. He gives her the money for a husband. And despite having an opportunity that he's always wanted for many years, he lets her go. Now, after she goes and frees her husband knows that Natan always wanted his wife. And he says, "You must have been with him. If in order for him to give you the money, he must have wanted something back. I don't believe you that you weren't with him." And he refused to be with his wife, and he wanted to divorce her. He wanted to divorce his wife because he didn't believe her. He goes, "No way, you went all the way to his house. He gave you the money, and he didn't get what he wanted. There's no way." She said, "Listen, I did. I didn't do anything. He didn't believe her. He didn't have enough proof to divorce her and get a get without paying the get. And he didn't have at the same time any trust in her. He didn't want to be with her." One day, Rabbi Akiva sees there's a man, and he sees something other people don't see. Rabbi Akiva was one of the holiest people that ever lived. He was able to see things we can't see. He sees this one person has a holy fire on top of his head that reaches the sky, like the Ktoret. Mamash, like a fire on top of his head. And he comes up to this person. It's Natan Tzutzita. He says, "What did you do that made you so holy than everybody else? You know a lot of Torah. You're a secret tzaddik." He goes, No, I don't know nothing. I know basics." He goes, "What did you do?" He goes, "I tell you the truth, for the Rav, I give tzedakah. Rabbi Akiva says, "You don't get a fire like that by giving tzedakah. What did you do that made you like Yosef Tzaddik?" He says, "Oh, there was a time." And he tells him the story of how the woman came to him. So Rabbi Akiva goes to her husband, and he says, "You have nothing to worry about. Your wife is one of the holiest women in the generation. She didn't fail a test, and the man she didn't fail a test with is also one of the holiest men in the generation." Sometimes we do things, and we don't think that there's a consequence for them. We don't think there's an outcome for them because we don't see it. Sometimes you simply don't see things. And so you think nothing happened. After Chanukah, I saw my next door neighbor, also a nice Jewish guy, Ashkenazi guy, and he says to me, he saw I was getting out of the car, I was a little bit in a hurry, and he came and he kind of wanted to talk for a little bit, and I said, "Yeah, no." And he goes, "Listen, I have to tell you, you changed my grandson's life." I'm looking, maybe he's talking to somebody behind me. I don't know. What do I know about your grandson? Last thing I know about his grandson, he was like 6 years old, 7 years old. I don't have any 6, 7 years old, other than the tzaddik that comes here. I don't have anybody else's grandson. How do I know your grandson? He goes, no, you don't understand. You lit your menorah for Hanukkah on the window. And my grandson passed with us, and he saw your menorah lit at night. He said, wow, Saba, I never saw a Hanukkah menorah lit at the window. I never saw it before. So I tell the guy, I'm like, what do you mean, you don't light menorah? He goes, no, of course I light. I'm like, so where do you light it? He says, no, I light it usually by the door. I usually light it by the door, or I light it in the back. He said, oh no, the menorah is supposed to be, the whole point of the menorah of Hanukkah, you're supposed to put it where most people are going to see it. He goes, yeah, I put it in the back. I said, no, the halacha is there has to be a road separating you and your neighbor. So he's like, all right, so where should I put it? And I told him where to put it next year. But the point is, me, my wife, and the little kids, we just light the menorah innocently. We light the menorah. What do we think? What's the big deal? It's a menorah. Like every year, we light the menorah, we celebrate, we pray some dreidel, we put some sufganiyot. I'm the only one that eats them because everyone else wants to. And that's it. Everything is fun. Everything is fun. What's the big... Who thinks that this little menorah on the seventh day is going to be imprinted into a 7-year-old's mind for the rest of his life? Who thinks like a thing? Who thinks such a thing? All of you lit menorahs. Did you think, oh, when I'm lighting this menorah is going to change the life of a 7-year-old? He's going to remember it forever. Why? That's the way the kids are. Every single thing that you do has an outcome. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes that offer to the people in the office, hey, who wants coffee? You know, who wants coffee? You think you're being nice. And Steve says, yeah, I'll take one. Okay, I'll bring you the coffee, Steve. And you bring him the coffee because you think you're being a nice woman. Why not? Steve is my colleague. We were at Harvard together. We were going to be in Gehenom together soon. Well, what's the problem? What's the problem? It's just coffee. It's just coffee. What's the big deal? Who wants coffee? Rabotai, you know how many marriages are being broken up right now as we speak over coffee? Over who wants coffee? I'm trying to be funny to lighten up the issue, but the reality is that it's very sad and very real. I have women sending me messages and men sending me messages. They're telling me I don't want to be married anymore. Why? I met someone on WhatsApp. I met someone on Facebook. I met someone in my office. I met someone here and I met someone there. And I said, how did you let it happen? Okay, fine. Now you're already in it. 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. What are we going to do? Once a woman touches another man, she cannot go back to her husband. There's no such thing. We don't have such a thing like the Americans or the Goyim in general, where the woman cheats and then she goes back to her husband and he forgives and everything's okay. There is no okay. There's no okay. That's it. It's finished. You're not allowed to be with her, even if you want to. And she's not allowed to be with him either. There's no okay. There's no like, oh yeah, I'll let this one pass. We'll work it out. There's no we'll work it out. She's asura alav. She's forbidden to him. Same thing as nida. Same thing as chash v'shalom. Anything else but allowed. She may be a very nice person. She may have made a mistake, not on purpose, but whatever. Not allowed. Not allowed. You know how many marriages are broken because of this? So for all of these women and men that are spending an obnoxious amount of time on the internet, on WhatsApp, thinking that they're doing good for the world, you have to check yourself. What are you using it for? Are you using it for the family or are you using it for your desires? You can't tell me your husband, oh honey, I'm in 20 Torah groups, but in reality, you're not watching anything in the Torah groups. You're just watching if your new boyfriend is in this group and that group and you're only joining it because of him. Same thing with the guys, these nochlim, these despicable people that join groups only so they can look at the pictures of women and then they try texting people. This happens, Rabotai. This happens on a daily basis. You think I'm exaggerating. I see this. They come to me after disaster strikes. They send text messages to women. Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing? Where you from? Everybody's Romeo. Everybody's Romeo. Hey, what you doing? Where you from? Oh, yeah, you like Rabbi Reuven? Yeah, he's the best. Yeah. Yeah, Rabbi Reuven, go. Yeah. Yeah, he's the greatest. Yeah. We should watch a shiur together.
You should start selling tickets.
You guys are laughing, but this is breaking up marriages, though. It's not funny, but it's funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. A woman came to Rav Shpadron, Alav Shalom, one of the greatest Kiruv rabbis in history. Rav Shpadron, you listen to his lectures. If you're not on fire at the end of the lecture, you should check your pulse. Giant Talmid Chacham, but seriously, lectures, I didn't listen to too many, but every single one of them put me on such fire, I felt it for a week. A woman came to Rav Shpadron, she says, Kvod Rav, I want to get a blessing. I want to get a blessing, Kvod Rav, but I can't seem to get the right blessing from any rabbi. I've gone to so many rabbis, I can't get the blessing that I want. So the Rav says to her, why not? What's wrong with the blessing? What kind of blessing do you want? She goes, no, I want a regular blessing. The blessing like it says in the Torah. She says, okay, Misha Barach, Avraham. No, Kvod Rav. Like it says in the Torah. He says, Biti, what does it say in the Torah? She says, a blessing. A blessing in the Torah. How is it done? The Kohen, the Tzaddik, the Rav puts his hands on the head of the person he's blessing. But no Rav is willing to do it. In those days, they still weren't willing to do it. Baruch Hashem. No Rav is willing to put his hands on my head to bless me appropriately, like my father used to. My father, when I was growing up, used to bless me. Oh, he's your father, he's allowed. But I want a Rav, I want Tzaddik to bless me. And us, like it's supposed to, like it says in the Torah. And he says, my daughter, let me explain something to you. When you light your candles for Shabbat, do you touch the fire? She says, no, of course not. Well, how do you do your blessing? She says, oh, I light the candles and I go like this, and like my mom taught me, then I put my hands on my face. He goes, why don't you put your hands inside the fire to see maybe it's not hot enough? She says, no, Kvod Rav, I don't want to burn my hands. He says, exactly. I don't want to burn my hands either. I don't want to burn my hands either. In the Gemara, Masechet Avodah Zarah, page 25b, it says, Isha kli zena alea. A woman needs to understand Hashem created her in a certain way. What's the creation? How did He create her? Her entire body can be used either as a tool of protection or as a weapon. Her body. Now don't hang me yet. This is to explain something. Here we have a woman in this Gemara. It said, what happens if a woman was captured by a non-Jew? What if she was captured by a non-Jew and he wants to rape her? What do we do? How do we do? She'll be afraid that he's going to kill her. The Gemara says, you don't have to worry, he's not going to kill her. Why is he not going to kill her? Because a woman knows how to use her body as a weapon or as a tool to make sure that he doesn't want to kill her. Doesn't want to kill her. To save herself, she can use one of the two. Meaning Hashem created her with a certain nature, and He created the man with a certain nature where she can, in most cases, obviously the psychopaths out there, in most cases she can protect herself because of the specialty of her body. What am I trying to tell you? I'm not trying to tell you to get yourself into trouble, chas v'shalom. What I'm trying to tell you is that any woman needs to understand that Hashem created you differently than a man. You're not a man. Men look at other men and don't think anything other than he's disgusting. Women look at other women and it's like, oh, she's pretty. Men look at women and they think of bad thoughts. Women look at men and they think, oh, he must be a nice guy. This is the nature. It's never going to change. Not with you, not with anyone watching, not anyone before, not anyone after. If we deny it and we say, no, he's different. He's different. He's my friend from high school. He's different. He's my boss. He's different. He's my this. He's different. He's my this. Then you should look at statistics. A few months ago, it was announced, Hashem Erachem, in Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is the most religious place in the world. Religious place in the world. Not just in Israel, in the world. When you think of Judaism, Bnei Brak. In an office in Bnei Brak, a big company, Hashem Erachem, it was found that the Baal Habayit, the boss, was forcing himself on all of the women employees there. Married, not married, whoever. And unfortunately, most of them fell for it. Why? They wanted to keep their job. They wanted to keep their job. When the Gemara Bava Metzia says that the angels asked Avraham Avinu, where's your wife? Where's your wife? They wanted to remind him of how modest his wife is. That she's not hanging out with other men. Even though it's her house. There's nothing wrong. There's a lot wrong. Has to be separation. There must be separation. There's no such thing as platonic relationships. In the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, page 37a, it says, for all of those people that think that they can maintain these platonic relationships, no, she's my employee. It's okay. We're in the office till 8 o'clock at night, and it's okay. We're friends now. She's married. I'm married. We have kids. Sometimes our kids play together. We're friends. You should know that there's laws of yichud. You're not allowed to be alone with a woman that's not your wife. And in a closed area, there has to be other people. It has to be a door that's always open. There's certain laws you must know. Now, if you think you're above the law, because, she's my friend, she's 90 years old, I'm 100, she has a dog, I have a cat, we're not the same, I hate her, she likes me, all that, you think you're different. You're convinced you're different. You're different. You're different because you're smarter, because you came to the shiur, because whatever you are. The Gemara specifically talks to you and he says, lighting fire, and not expecting it to burn you is only an act of fools. Lighting a fire and putting your hand in it, playing with the fire in essence, and not expecting to get burnt eventually, only a fool thinks like that. Only a fool. It's only a matter of time. Even if she's 90, even if she's 900, even if she's not Jewish, even if she's Jewish, even if she's young, even if she's married, even if she's anything. If you allow yourself to play with fire, it's only a matter of time before you get burned. It's only a matter of time. And I'll finish it off with this. And then you guys could ask as many questions you want. The Mishnah here says that a person that just simply passes a drink, a blessing drink to a woman that's not his wife, that's not allowed, it's forbidden to him. Even more so if it's at a bar. Even more so if it's not in a holy event. Even more so if it's a woman that's completely a stranger to him. It says for that, the Torah puts a death penalty on him. Why? Because he's about to create death, with the following act of what happens after these things. If he fails, if she fails, and so on. And the thing is, you have to understand is that anyone that truly loves their wife, needs to help her by making sure she never has a reason to look elsewhere. Every single case, literally every single case of these women that come to me after the fact that they have a boyfriend now, or they have a this, or they have a digital relationship. They haven't officially cheated on their husband physically, but they're in love with Steve in Jahannam, wherever he is, on WhatsApp. They're in love with Wilbur in Alaska. They're in love with somebody that's digital. They're not here, but they're in love. They're in love. They're infatuated. There's a relationship. He's amazing. She's amazing. We talk all night. We talk all day. We click. We this. He doesn't smell like my husband. She doesn't know he smells even worse than her husband. She doesn't realize that, because to her husband is the worst. This guy on digital planet is the best. Why? Why? Because her husband made her miserable. Why did any woman ever get to a point where another man talking to her is even an option of entertaining? She's unhappy. Why? Because many of these men, with no exception, like to torture their wives. They think they're like baby ovens. So they figure that the only thing they're good for is to make kids. But if it comes to making sure that they're happy, nah, it's okay. She'll be happy on her own with the kids. What about taking her out once in a while on a birthday, or whenever she feels like she wants to, for a dinner or something? What about buying her flowers for Shabbat? What about being generous? What about being a gentleman? What about making her happy? What about making her laugh? What about spending a little bit of time with her? What about all that stuff? Oh yeah, no, that's she does that with her girlfriend. She does that with Steve on Facebook. So he gives the job of being a husband to Steve, and then he's surprised that Steve becomes the husband. So even for the guys that are learning, Torah, you need to know that even with all of your learning Torah, which is critical, the world depends on it, you still need to spend a little time with your wife once in a while. Meaning every day, a half hour, an hour a day. Spend some time with your wife. But if it gets to a point where all day you're with your wife, that's also not healthy. There's all wife, no Torah, it's also going to end up in a disaster. Because the Torah is what keeps you at bay. The Torah is what keeps you connected to Hashem and what gives you direction of how to run your life. So it can't be just Torah and no wife. It can't be just wife, no Torah. It has to be a balance. You can't become one of your wife's girlfriends and talk to her all night until the morning. But at the same token, you can't be one of these mute husbands that talks to them only when they want to eat. Like a polar bear just makes humming sounds or growls when he's hungry. Can't be one of these people either. And last but not least, Rabotai, for all of these guys that think that they're the ones that are making the money and decide to be stingy on their wives, you should know that your wife hates you. And she's right for hating you. All cheap men are hated by their wives. All of them, without an exception. Without an exception. Without an exception, every single woman hates a husband when he's cheap with her. It's not because she values money. It's not because she values money. It's not because she thinks of only money. It's not because she's materialistic. It's not because of that. It's because when you're cheap on your wife, you make her feel like nothing. You make her feel like she's worthless. You make her feel like the kid she brought to the world, with your DNA in it also, worth nothing. You make her feel like her taking care of the house is worth nothing. You make her feel like she being the wife that's supposed to be honest and protective of her family is nothing. You're being cheap on her. You don't want to give her some money to do whatever she needs to do. Why are you surprised she wants to kill you? Why are you surprised she wants to go to Steve? Steve is generous. At least when they're dating. I'm serious. This is not purely the women's fault. This is also not purely the men's fault. It's a combination. That's why we have the Torah. That's why we have the Torah, Rabotai, because the Torah is supposed to be an instruction set that keeps you out of trouble. And if the Torah mentioned a story about a woman named Shlomit that just flirted a little bit, not intentionally. She was married, she was happy, everything was good, but she flirted a little bit. And it tells us a built-up story of how the disaster went from just smiling at an Egyptian to being Hashem and Hashem raped by an Egyptian to having a kid with the Egyptian to the kid becoming a wicked person and getting a death penalty. That whole story is not for entertainment purposes, Rabotai. It's to tell you that that is still happening today. If your wife is talking to another man on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on whatever application there is in the world, that's because you're doing something wrong. That's because you're doing something wrong. Instead of letting Steve be the husband, you be the husband. If your wife is not happy, it's your fault, no one else's. Oh no, but it's her friends. No, she has her friends because you make her miserable. A happy wife doesn't need friends. She has a husband, her kids is more than enough. Who has time? Once in a blue moon, whatever, they have kid dates or whatever. The little kids play together. But in reality, it's for the kids just to not have a headache. It's not because she needs friends. She has more than enough fulfillment from a wonderful husband. She has more than enough fulfillment from a wonderful family. He has more than enough fulfillment from his wonderful wife and kids. There's no time for friends. And everyone's, oh no, he's antisocial. I'm happy about the family. It's the only thing you have to worry about. If someone's unhappy, you have to look in the mirror. No one just becomes unhappy because they were born on the wrong side. No one. You have to look in the mirror. Sometimes because you're cheap. Sometimes because you're angry. Sometimes because you don't take care of your hygiene. Sometimes because your eyes don't stop looking at every woman that moves and it makes her feel uncomfortable. Sometimes because you don't know how to give a compliment because you think it costs you money to give her a compliment. Sometimes guys talk to their wives like they talk to football players. Guys talk to their wives like they talk to the soccer team. She's not a man. Don't talk to her like one. You have to know how to talk. You have to speak like a person, like a ben Torah, even if you're not. Can't talk to her like she's one of the guys. Can't give her a high five. She's not your boy. She's not. Same thing with the women. Stop pretending like you're one of the guys. You're not. Everyone has their role. If everyone plays their role, everyone's happy. Once she pretends to be a guy and you pretend to be a woman, you become a celebrity on MTV. They do a reality show on you. So, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. What's hard is overcoming the Yetzirah that keeps telling you, no, log on to WhatsApp and see who's on it. Log on to Facebook and see if he made a comment on your, if he liked your post. And I told you, there's a woman right now, she's psychopath. She fell in love with one of the people on Team Hashem. And she's typing all over the internet his name. Hey, answer me. She's a married woman, a married religious woman. She's looking for a young guy that's 20-something years old. How come you won't answer me? I told him, you're forbidden to answer. She's a psychopath. She's a married woman. I don't know why she's talking to you like this. You guys should have never talked in the first place like this. How did it get to this? She fell in love with someone digitally. Do you understand? This is happening every day. You have to be very careful. You want to protect your family, that's the number one jewel. It's more important than your job. It's more important than your career. It's more important than your money. It's more important than your dreams, aspirations. You have a family. You don't want it? Don't start one. You don't want it? Don't start one at least. These laws seem like it's the opposite of our reality today. And that's the truth. It is. It is the opposite of our reality today. But that's why the previous generations, divorce was a curse word. Because it just wasn't existent. It was non-existent. People didn't get divorced because there was no need. There was just no need. So, yes, technology can be used and is necessary to do a lot of good things. The reason why we reach so many people every single week, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people learn our Torah every week, is because of technology. So we can't just forbid it and say it's not allowed, it's not allowed. It's just not realistic. You need it. But just like an electric chair, the only difference between an electric chair and a regular chair is too much electricity. Same thing. Too much. Too much. You get addicted to WhatsApp. You get addicted to Twitter. You get addicted to the internet. You start making friends. You're looking for trouble. You're playing with fire. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before this stuff becomes an addiction. And even if you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend on the internet, the fact that so many people spend more time on the internet than their own kids is a problem. Kids feel like their father and their mother's an iPhone. They're waiting online at the Apple stores for the new iPhone because they're looking for Abba. Abba, oh, here's my new Abba. He's $800. Here's my new Ima. It's $950 and it has a 64 gigabyte hard drive.